welcome to the Swedish Junior Hockey Podcast. Jacob Dahlin, the host here. And today we have a former player, coach, and a sports psychologist. What else should we say, John?
Well, I guess basically just John Paris Jr., just another human being that happens to have a few years on his age, and happy to be here.
This episode is brought to you by Scandlux, your home for Scandinavian luxury products for the U.S. market. You can find us at scandlux.com.
Yeah, thanks for jumping on. And let's start with, where are you sitting today?
I'm in Fort Worth, Dallas at the moment. This is where I live. Been here for about 12 years.
Yep. And we were supposed to record, and somebody clipped a telephone or a pole and knocked out your power.
Yes.
But we got on, so it's good. No problems today.
No, we're here.
Yeah. Here's the things so look, we can, you've got such an impressive resume, and for people that want to know about John Paris Jr., it's easy to Google it, and a big long Wikipedia page comes up, and it's great for me because I can get a lot of information on there. But right now I have the Elite Prospects page open here, and actually the stuff that was written in the Wikipedia information was interesting to me. And so why don't we take back? You're originally from where?
Windsor, Nova Scotia, in Canada. That's way down on the Atlantic Ocean.
Yeah.
Wonderful place to be. We call it. It's a playground, wonderful playground area, and there's a lot of tourists go there.
Yeah, and I have a friend of mine that's from Nova Scotia, and he always talks about, he lives on the beach. Well, in the summer. So
in the summer, yes. Coastline, yes.
Yeah. But Windsor is on the it's on the west side of Nova Scotia, right?
Yes, of Halifax too. Of the major city, which would be Halifax. So yeah, it's in the Annapolis Valley.
Yeah.
So I can say Acadian territory.
I can say that I've been really close to it every time I fly to Sweden.
Yes. Yes. When you fly over, you're close. Yes.
So here's what I want to talk about. We want to talk about your background because it's unique, right? And certainly has shaped you in a lot of ways. I put on my little notes here: trendsetter, icebreaker, paving the way. That's kind of what I think of when I've read your bio. But the main topic, I wanted to get your opinion because you actually got referred to me by Danny Treisler, who's been on the podcast a couple of times. Call him a friend who's now in Denmark. And he said, you really ought to have John on because he can talk about hockey IQ and the psychology of hockey and kind of mental toughness and more than just the edge work and passing, right?
Yeah, it's a lot more to it than that. Anybody can, anyone can improve their edge work and their passing or puck management skills, but the key is above the shoulders. That's where the game is really played. You have to learn to play the game within the game.
Yeah. So for those who don't know and not watching the YouTube clip on this, but just listening to the audio version, you're a little bit older than I am. I'm 48, so you've been around a little while.
Yeah, I've been around a little while. I was born on August the 1st, 1946. So that makes me 77. I'll be 78 come 1st of August this summer. So going on 25.
And yeah, that's exactly right. You're as old as you feel. But growing up, you're also, what else is unique with John Paris Jr. as a hockey player back in the 40s?
Oh, in the 50s, 40s. Well, I was recruited by let's just say probably the greatest coach in the world, Scotty Bowman. Knocked on our door, and
what Wikipedia says, befriended Rocket Richard. So you've been around with the big boys, especially around the Montreal Canadiens and kind of the Eastern teams there, right?
Well, I had the privilege of being around during the 6-team era when you had, let's just say, access to all the teams coming into the Montreal Forum, et cetera, and so forth. So I saw all of the star players, the regular players, and let's just say the role players for decades. So I can go way back and have an opinion on exactly what transpired back in the 50s, late 40s, right up to today. And I've seen some changes, but I also, there's a lot of things that are the same. It's just, for example, terminology. The, the terminology has changed, but the expressions and the main meaning of the subject that you talk about has not changed. And hockey's still played on ice with a stick and a puck.
Yep. And the fun thing is that this little game brings a lot of passionate people together, which is why this guy from Sweden is talking to a guy that lives in Texas from Nova Scotia about this game.
Both the game, yes. And this is what makes the game, or sports in general, it's entertainment. And what makes it so interesting, it's because it draws people together. You may not always agree on which team, which player, etc., but you can agree to disagree, and everybody gains if you have an open mind. But this is what's unique with sports, and hockey is unique within itself because it is the fastest, most difficult team sport to play.
And it's also I mean, I hear this all the time. Hockey's such a small community, it's such a small world with hockey players. And I think it's fascinating and so true.
It is true. You'll meet someone that you may never have spoken to that's involved in hockey, either played it or in management, or maybe just an everyday fan. And you'll have a conversation piece. You always have something to start with, and automatically, as if you knew them, because you fall within the same room.
Yeah. So let's take it back. So you were a player at one time, and a pretty good one, but not a big player.
No, not a big player.
You weren't the bruiser from the Western Canada, but you must have had a different game. But let's talk about your background as a player growing up there in Nova Scotia.
Well, I learned the game to begin with to skate it. I was 2 years old, not quite two. I could skate better than I could walk, they used to say, but that was my dad that initiated me into the game. And I played my minor hockey in Windsor, Nova Scotia. And we're just a small town of about 3,000 some odd people, similar to a lot of small areas in Sweden. And what we did was hockey, 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 hockey. However, for a few years, we had one team, one group of youth, and we were probably one of the better teams in Canada of our age groups, starting from beginners right through midget hockey. And we won a few championships. Some teams would refuse to play against us, but we had the possibility of being on the ice practically every day. Indoor, we had an indoor rink and an outdoor rink.
How would you describe yourself? Which I always think is hard to do, but how would you describe yourself as a younger hockey player?
A student of the game. I'm an awareness player. I was quick and fast. I had both of those.
Okay.
However, the understanding part of the game, the vision part of it, that was instilled in me by my father to start with. And I had to dissect games sitting on his knee. But when I played, I found out that, hey, this game is only complicated if I do not understand what I'm doing. So I was always looking for something. And my mind was trained that way, always looking.
And did your dad play?
My dad played hockey. Yes, he did. My dad, my grandfather, my uncles, my brothers, they played. I have family members who played in the colored hockey league in the 1890s, the first league that existed in hockey, actually.
Well, that's awesome. So I just think that that's so fascinating too, the father-son kind of dynamics, and it described that. So was he out there on the ponds, on the backyards with you, or was it like in every way you guys were talking about hockey in different situations?
He was everywhere. On the ice, he taught me how to skate. He taught me first how to use the edges. And we started out with they had 4 blades, the double blades. So that's how I started. And then immediately put me on 1 blade. So, and plus, if we watched a hockey game or any type of situation, I had to break it down. I had to see it, understand it. So that was let's just say a precursor of what I became later on, I'm always curious, and it's due to that. But he always said, if you can see it, you have an opportunity to have success at it. If you cannot see it, you have no opportunity to be successful. And there's no such thing as luck, he would always say. You create your own.
What was his occupation?
My father worked at the post office in Windsor, Nova Scotia. He was a post office employee. He worked for the government. That's what
Okay.
he did. And he coached baseball, played baseball. They used to pay him to play on teams, either baseball or fastball. And other teams around the province would come and get him and pay him to come to play for them. He was an outstanding baseball player.
So you got the genetics, right?
Yes, I mean, we never do things all by ourselves.
Yeah,
you
it
know,
helps. It helps a certain way. My genetics is more cross country skiing, which is not necessarily the best as a hockey player, but
well, it doesn't hurt. It gives you endurance.
it does.
Cardio.
That's true. That's true. But
Mhm.
but how long did you stay in Nova Scotia in terms of playing hockey?
Till I was 16, well, 17 actually. And I went to Canadian junior camp, Cournoyer, Savard, Bougia, all of that group, Lemaire, Coco. And that to me was eye-opening, leaving a small town, going to a huge city. I played in Maisonneuve with one of the farm teams with Guy Lapointe, who was one of my teammates at that time. I roomed actually during my career with players like one of my roommates was Rogie Vachon, Augustin Vachon. He's in the Hall of Fame, goaltender, played with the Kings in Detroit, Montreal. No, how would I say that? I was really gone at 17. Never looked back. Was homesick for a couple of months, and after that, I was fine. But no, I was 17 years old.
Yeah. And how's juniors back then? Of course, not as big as it is today with junior teams everywhere, but there were still juniors, right?
Yeah, well, you see, you only had 6 teams in the National Hockey League back then.
Yeah.
And that's in 62. So basically, what would happen is every NHL team had their farm teams or their affiliate teams. Everyone had a junior team. So in Quebec, Ontario, and the West. So that's all. That was the extent of it. They had one junior team in each province, and it was in the CHL, which you know is a Canadian Junior Major Hockey League today. So if you played in one of the chains of an organization of the National Hockey League, it was kind of a feather in your hat because you know as well as I do with 6 teams, the opportunities were very rare. The competition, if there were 100 people at training camp, you know there was 100 people that could play the game. So basically, you had a barometer of how where you could rate yourself and rank and figure out what you had to do.
So, so when did you figure out that, okay, I this may be something that I can make it at?
As a player or in coaching?
Yeah, as a player. We'll get into coaching next.
Well, as a player, healthy, I was always able to dominate. I never thought about my size. I'm not that big, 5'5", really 5'4.5", but I like 5'5", sounds better. And I weigh about $135. So, but I was able to play against the big guys, and during that era, they could, around the net, for example, in the grid areas, that they could cross check you or hook you, whatever they wanted, and get away with it. Game was different than today. It was brutal. But however, I was able to survive in that simply because I could do things that the others weren't able to do. And I would apply to that, and I was scoring a lot of goals. But I took as much pride in playing at the 200-foot game because that's what my dad had taught me very young. So I sort of had an idea then when people were calling me names or yelling and screaming when I was very young. When my dad told me, he said, they're doing that because you're good.
So let's talk about that too, because you're a Black American. Well, so how does it called in Canada? Here it's called African American. What's it called in Canada? It explains my ignorance here.
No, it's not ignorance. It's okay. I'm Black.
Yep.
Bottom line is there. I'm Black. I have no problem with that. I'm very proud of being Black. For me, I always tell people I had the good fortune of being born with Black parents. So
yes,
even though there's a lot of biracial activity in there, however, that's all. I'm Black. I have no problem with that, and that's what you can use. But they do Canadian, African American. Really, I should just be Canadian, or you should just be American, and maybe we'd have less problems. But we're not on that today.
I know, and but it's funny because not just being of color, you were small, so you were different in many ways.
In many ways, but I never realized I was small. I never realized I was really Black. Other people told me that. So then, and I would smile anyway. So, but basically, like I said, the difference factors was more of a motivational thing. You have no time. Don't be distracted by other ingredients that are out there, whether they're positive or negative. Go out, play your game. Don't take yourself outside of the game. And
Yeah.
that's what I did.
No, it's fascinating. And I think that, so looking back, how much of that shaped you kind of as a player, that you had to be the underdog, and you know, nothing was given?
Well, how would I say that? Underdog, I can't really say that, because if they were picking teams, I was always the first one picked. So basically, I just looked at it that way. What it did teach me was that there's no perfect situation. And it's how you deal with situations, confrontation, how you handle it is going to dictate the results. And basically, I've always used that, either whether I'm playing or not playing or preparing, whatever. It's I want to control the results in a positive manner, not in a negative manner.
Yeah. Something popped up on my screen here, so I'm trying to wave it away here. I lost you for a second. So, all right. So, but you played up, and talk about your that you didn't know that you had an illness.
No, didn't know it, but I played ill, and there were games I could dominate, and in junior hockey. But when I was playing minor hockey, I just dominated. I could do what I wanted. And when I was healthy in junior hockey, I did the same thing. However, there were a lot of times I would have problems with my intestines, problems with my digestion, etc., fever, and often have to make stops at the emergency room at the hospital.
Wow.
And my game would suffer from it. So sometimes media or certain individuals in the game would think, well, maybe he's a prima donna, or maybe, he's a superstar one evening, he takes a couple of nights off. But no, I was playing with well over 100-degree fevers, et cetera, and so forth. Actually, the doctors never believed at the beginning that I had played hockey. They said, it's impossible. And it had to be shown. We proved it to them that I played. But yeah, I played with illness. And that's why, but it was a positive in one way, because it brought me into coaching.
Yeah. So at what point did you and how was that for you in terms of like, okay, this is it, I'm done?
Well, at 18, I had been at the Quebec Aces training camp in the American Hockey League. And the boomer was there, Boom Boom Geoffrion, the famous superstar of the Canadiens and the National Hockey League, sadly deceased today. And I wasn't feeling well, but it was okay. But in 1967, I was taken into Philadelphia by end of the draft season, the original draft of the NHL, the Flyers. So they had my rights, and I was at training camp. They wouldn't let me go on the ice. So they sent me to the hospital, and the doctor said, I don't think you should be playing. We need to do more tests. Finally, they gave me a clearance to join the camp, and they sent me to Knoxville, Tennessee, to play in the Eastern Professional Hockey League in the Deep South. I was the first Black to play on a team in the Southern United States. And Knoxville, it's not a bad place to be. So
Yep.
I joined that era. If there were problems, we know that. We're not going into that. But I was ill. So one day I went to the arena, and the gentleman was there, and he said, somebody wants to talk to you. And it was a doctor. And that was the end of my career. He said, you have to go back. He said, you're not healthy, and you have an illness, and it's not good.
Yeah.
So you won't be able to play hockey. And so I went back. So I went back to Quebec, and I decided I'd hit the books. I ended up with a non-visible disability. Like, I have a pouch, a sac on my side. I have no colon or no rectum or anything like that. They took that all out. I had cancer, and I had a combination of colitis and Crohn's disease, which is very rare. So basically, I had to battle there, and I had cardiac arrest on the table. So it was a rough spell for a while. A lot of it I do not remember, but I do know for a fact, to make a long story short, that I wanted to stay involved in the game. So I knew I had to find a way, maybe a different route than the others were taking. So for myself, it was education, coaching, and using patience and perseverance to get to reach my desire.
Yeah. So did you go to university there in Canada?
Yeah, I went to college in Canada. I went in college in French and in English. I speak French and English. I could speak 4 languages back at that time, and I lost 2 of them after cardiac arrest that we don't have. I don't have the usage of them anymore. For instance, Italian, and
wow.
I still have French and English. When I came out, I could only speak French. And my dad, I can remember, would say, "I can't understand it," to my mom. He doesn't understand what we're saying, and they were explaining to him that's because he doesn't understand English anymore. So I learned to speak English, read and write all over again in both languages, and that was the start. And actually that year I came out of the hospital. I remember coming out after a major operation in 75. I told my wife, I said, I'm going, and I was only young, 25. I'm going to Belleville, Ontario. She said, well, who's taking you? I said, I'm going by myself. I have to do this. She said, well, where are you going? I said, I'm going to the university there. There's an international course on hockey being given. The first international hockey symposium that's ever existed is being held in Belleville. And I said, the Russians, the Swedes, everybody's going to be there. I said, I have to be there. She said, you can't go. She said, how are you going to? I said, I'll get there. So she let me go. And the doctor said, well, let him go. And I went, and I can remember setting up at 3 a.m, and they'd have an interpreter with Boris Cooligan and all of them in the room. And I do not drink, but they were drinking strong stuff. But they were talking hockey, and that just, the light bulb completely went on there. But I had started coaching in 1969, 68, 69. So youth in St. Joseph de Sorel. So I was always, I was continually studying and trying to take advantage of every situation I could.
Yeah, and then you got into the coaching. So I'm looking at, I don't know if this is right. So what level did you start off in the coaching? Because
I started, well, I'll tell you, Jacob, I coached in 69. I coached the junior A team, farm team of the Sorel Blackhawks, Chicago Blackhawks farm team. Chicago Blackhawks had the Quebec Junior Major Hockey League team in Sorel Tracy. And they had a junior B team. Their farm team was a junior team was in St. Joseph de Sorel. And I was the coach there with Marcel Max Goodrow, my good friend. He's like a brother to me. He's deceased today, but we played together, an outstanding defenseman. And I coached there, and I was coaching minor hockey with Mr. Charlemagne Pellecain, who was the director of sports and of St. Joseph de Sorel, who came to my house, and he said, we're looking for a coach. And I said, oh, well, maybe I can find someone for you. And he looked at me and he smiled. He said, no, he said, I'm talking about you, John. I said, well, Charlemagne, I said, at that time I called him Mr. Pellecain. I said, Mr. Pellecain, you know there are no black coaches in hockey. I said, you're setting yourself. He said, who said anything about a black coach? I'm looking for a coach. Oh, and I said, well, you found one. And that's how I started. And I was supposed to have one team, and I ended up coaching 4 teams. We won 4 championships in that region. We won everything there in that league, the whole 4 teams. And they named me the director of summer sports, etc. And I was still taking college courses, and I was working as a cost analyst at Quebec Iron and Titanium Corporation. So,
okay. So you had. So this was still kind of you have your professional gig, and then you've got. Then you got your passion on the side.
Yes, my passion on the side, and that's how I started. And the midget hockey, you have to remember that the best midget hockey in the world was played in the midget AAA Development Hockey League in Quebec. And the reason why was because they had 7 teams in the whole province, and the top 16, 17-year-olds, 15, 16, 17-year-olds played midget. They didn't play like the other provinces. A lot of them would go and play either prep or junior A, So they stayed in midget. So in that league, that's why Mario Lemieux, Luc Robitaille, all the superstars came out of that league. And the ambition for coaches and the way that you knew you were a good coach is if you arrived to coach midget AAA. That league started in the 70s. And Mario de Guise, who was the director of the Ice Hockey Federation in the province of Quebec at the time, also had a teams. He was director of sports also in Sorel Tracy. So he brought me over to Sorel Tracy across the bridge to coach his top AA teams. And that's how it started. And then finally, I ended up coaching the Richelieu Riverline, the mid AAA team. And towards the end of a season, we made the playoffs when no one thought we would. That's why they brought me on. And I had trouble at that time being able to walk, and so people would help me. However, I brought them to the series, and we won. We went right through to the semifinals. The following year, we won the Air Canada Cup, which is the Stanley Cup of minor hockey at that time. So and we went undefeated, which is in regulation time, which is a record that still holds. So, so basically, that's how I had to start. Did okay, yeah.
So let's fast forward a little bit, though, because I mean we could talk for hours about every team that you coached, but but I have to ask about one team. So you ended up in Atlanta.
Yes, Atlanta Knights, Tampa Bay Lightning farm team, their top affiliate.
Yeah, and which was that the how soon after that did the Thrashers come to Atlanta?
Thrashers came to Atlanta after they destroyed what they did. They tore down the Omni where we played because it held only like 15,000 people, and we used to fill it. So they needed to build a new arena in order to have the new franchise. And Ted Turner had the rights to the new franchise given to him. So the 96, 97 was the last season that they had the Knights in Atlanta.
Yeah. And then did that team move to Macon?
No, that team moved to Quebec.
Okay. So
they moved to Quebec. They went to Quebec City, and I knew that it wasn't going to be a successful event. They had the Nordiques there before, and they were gone, and for different reasons. So for me, no, Macon was in the Central Professional Hockey League. So that was a step lower, but it was an expansion, and nobody ever thought that you could put a successful franchise there, because in 1971, I believe, they had a team move in there, and it lasted only about a month, and they put a lock on the door and seized everything, and they said hockey in the South is not going to in Macon, forget it. So, but I met a gentleman brought me in, Richard Ray, and that's why I went there, mainly because of Richard Ray, one of the owners, and Pat Nugent, who had been the director of development for the New York Yankees in baseball. So they had convinced me to go, because I coached. My ambition was not to make the National Hockey League. I'd already been there as a scout. I'd been to training camp. So and with my health and et cetera, I enjoy developing. I like challenges, and I like helping players progress. So I said, I'll go there. And there was a gentleman, Maurice Jeffries, in the East Coast Hockey League, who kept hounding me, wanted me to sign, and he started with 3 years, and he went, I'll give you 5 years guaranteed, head coach, general manager. What do you want? He would say. I would say, that's not what interests me, Mr. Jeffries. And so I didn't go to Huntington. I chose Macon because of the reasons I told you, the challenge. And at that time, Kevin Cheveldayoff, the actual general manager of the Winnipeg Jets, was the general manager of the Chicago Wolves, who moved to the AHL. The IHL at that time and the AHL were merging. Had offered me an assistant role there. And I was actually considering going. I would have went, but Marty Howe was friends with the head coach, John Anderson, at that time, and he wanted work and needed work. So I didn't get that employment. I'd met with Greg Patrick of Pittsburgh Penguins, et cetera, and so forth. So I ended up in Macon.
And one of the greatest names of all hockey names, Macon Whoopi.
Yes. Macon Whoopi.
Where did that come from? Because I mean, you knew you had to be different.
Really, the song Macon Whoopi was, and don't forget, they had it on an airplane during the Vietnamese War. And and there's an air Force Base in Warner Robins, not far from Macon. I'm really not aware of where that came from, but it was named originally back of the original team that was there in early 70s was the Whoopie. They just added an extra E to it.
Okay.
And then there was Whoopi Goldberg. So, there's a lot of things that go there. I used to joke with people. I said, this is Whoopi Goldberg's team. But a lot of people associated with Doris Day and Macon Whoopi. And we used to go into Oklahoma City. They'd have 15,000 people in the stands sitting on Whoopi cushions. And so it was interesting. It was a novelty.
Yeah, but at the same time, it's it's entertainment. I mean, hockey's entertainment, and I'm in a town here in Winston-Salem, North Carolina, has a federal prospects hockey league team, and it's the lowest level of professional hockey, if you want to call it that. But it's entertainment, and people have to be aware that and there is a place for that in hockey. I mean, you got NHL, and not everybody's going to be able to play NHL, and not everybody's going to sell out a NHL stadium either. So,
no. The entertainment is, you said the magic word. It's entertainment, and that's what you need to have, because people have to have fun. They need to have enjoyment. They need to have partisanship, and they can get heated at times. But that's the enjoyment of the game. That's because it's because everyone does not think the same way. Everyone has their favorites and et cetera. And that's what keeps it interesting. And we need that. And you can never have too much entertainment within the game. Actually, today they're allowed to entertain. For instance, the lacrosse move, et cetera. Moves we made back in the day and were told not to do. We as kids, we did that in the 50s. There's nothing new there. I mean, the commentators and the analysts, they get all excited, and I'm sitting there smiling, or my phone will ring, or I'll get receive a text. Someone said, Coach, we did that way back when. I actually taught kids that in the 70s in St. Joseph, this or that. But you could have a brawl or a big fight if you did that. It was called hot dogging, showing off. And you can imagine a little short black guy going and putting a stick between his legs and flipping it up in the top net, what was going to happen, right? We're coming around the net, scooping it up and doing. But we learned that on the ponds and playing fun games and street hockey and playing shinny hockey. And the snow or ripples on the ice dictated that you had to make different moves. We had to move. We would pass pucks to our teammates on the pond over snow. So we would flip it over a bank in the air. So scoop it up, pass it like somebody throwing a lacrosse ball. We did all of that, but it was by necessity. We learned it. We weren't allowed to show off. And I can remember Mo Smith, one of my coaches in Windsor, Nova Scotia. Don't do it. He says, you're a little black guy. He said, you're going to get hurt. He said, they're all going to jump you. Do not do that. But I had my teammates who were white. They could do it too. So we just didn't do it during games. But you need the entertainment. You need that.
Yeah. Well, let's move into this area. We're right off that way, a little bit, a few weeks after the World Juniors. But here's the thing I want to pick your brain on, because I think I just want to get your opinion on this. Sweden versus USA in the final.
Sweden was a better hockey team when it comes to playing the game and all of the skill factors of it. But Sweden, for example, they do a lot of cycling, and they were controlling the corners in the wall. But the reason why we cycle and work those corners is there's two major reasons. One is to wear down the defensive and create opportunity. And the major is you always want to finish with a scoring opportunity off of that. Now, on a large ice surface, what happens, the Swedes they're used to playing on a large ice surface. So if you're playing against Finland or another team, you can do that and get away with it. But you're playing against a team that's used to playing on a smaller ice surface, that are used to getting inside the grid. They're going to the net. Doesn't matter what you do, that's where they're going. They're going to use their speed and whatever, and they're coming through the middle. And this is what happened. So for the Swedish hockey team, in my opinion, they could have come out with a better result if they had to use the middle of the ice better. Now, keep the tools, the skills that you have, but when you play a North American team like Canada or the US, like the US was power packed with individual talented players. But the team concept, we have to be honest, the Swedes were by far the better advanced team. So if they would play more of the North American style game, when they use the skill and all of the development that they have, but bring it to a North American style play for when they're playing the U.S., just a few minor changes inside the grid, etc. Get in the prime scoring area. You can still cycle. It would have been a different outcome, in my opinion.
What about the mental game? Because there was a little bit of that, especially you watch it and it seemed like the Americans got under the skin.
Yeah,
and the Americans came out ahead on the mental game in that game.
Yes, and I can remember when Borgie Salmon arrived in Toronto. People talk about racial prejudice or bigotry, etc. What was done to Borgie Salmon was asinine, borderline. They should have been in prison. It was wrong. I lift my hat to Borgie Salmon, but I'm going to take a step farther. When you're playing a team that you know that has a bit of arrogance and that are trying to play the mental game against you, they're going to use every tactic they can to distract you. You have to be prepared for that.
Yeah.
And in order to prepare for it, you have to have what I call ghost squads. Similarity. You need to prepare your team in consequence. You take them on the outside. You don't have to be on the ice for that. And you put them into those situations and you have them experience it. And then you have to explain to them and have them go through it themselves, the reaction, how to react, when to react. So they know it's coming.
So do you think, were they poorly prepared for that? Because you know that if you're going to play the American team, you know they're going to come in cocky and you know they're going to come in hard and physical. Or maybe they prepared them, but they just didn't execute well. What's your thoughts?
First of all, they had an excellent coaching staff. I'll never throw stones at coaches. The preparation part of it all comes back to being able to have the time and the resources to put the message across. And I think the major problem that they had was they didn't bring someone in that had the strength to be able to sit down one-on-one with the players, then as a group, and to use the strengths of mental conditioning to prepare them for that. You can't expect a head coach and his staff who are there to manage the team, to manage the players on their preparation, their development, et cetera, the game performance, making the changes during the game, adjustments, identification. It's not their role really to go out and have to deal with that like a troubleshooter.
Yeah.
What needs to be done, in my humble opinion, Sweden needs to bring in someone on a permanent basis, not just a sports psychologist, a hockey person. It could be another coach that has that strength that comes in and then explains to them, hey, you got a game to play. And every time something distracting happens, you have to go back to that model, got a game to play. Because distraction, they're going to use different methods to do that. So you put them in that environment before they're there, have them live it, have them react to it, and teach them how to deal with it. Yeah. And once they've had that, it's just like drinking water. he did what? Or you come back to the bench, did you hear what he said? Then they laugh at it. So you don't get distracted, and you just come back. You use it as motivation, a motivation in a positive, where you drive a little more. You add a little more emphasis upon your skating, on your stopping and turning and back checking. You apply a little more. You add a little more vision to your game. In short, you add a little more grit. And then you say, okay, you want to play that game? I got a game to play. I'm going to play my game, but I'm going to play it with even more intense. And you turn it against them, because that's all they did.
Because I think that from a standpoint of, everybody talks about the mental game and how cerebral, everybody's about the same in terms of physical fitness and physical abilities. And I think in tournaments like that is when it shows up. Now, I want to say this. Kudos to the Swedish junior team that made it to the final.
A heck of a hockey team. Great. And a heck of a development program. We're just talking about one element of the game. But if we look at the Swedish team together, that was just great to watch. I smiled the whole game. I just was a little bit perplexed. And it's not the coaching staff. because that's the individual player too. He
Yeah.
has to understand that he has responsibility to control his emotions, but
So-
we have to give him a little help.
So what's your opinion then on, I mean, I think that this is where and a lot of people are talking about the NTDP and the ability. I've listened to interviews of people that are in that program, and where they are honing that skill is in practice. They're going up iron sharpen iron, and the best against the best in practice.
Remember what I told you about ghost squats?
Yeah.
Well, that's what you do. You put them in situations, actual game
Sparring
situation.
partners, right?
Yeah, but I call them ghost squads, same as they use in football. But what the hockey players need to have today is a better awareness to the cerebral and the vision, the peripheral vision, how to use it. Because the game will slow down. The more you see the game, the more you understand the game. That's when it slows down, because you understand it. You know what you're looking for. The importance of triangulation, for example, they talk about it all the time. The triangulation is mainly hockey's played in formations of 3 to 5. There's always 3 implicated within. And if you start with that basics, that's mathematics. So basically what it comes down to, you have to understand that you have a role, you have to fulfill that role, you have to be trustable. Can I trust you? You have to be able to trust me. So it's a two-way street. Now, when the player's learning and they're out there, it's called development. So it's education. The game is education, and they have to be educated before they arrive to the ice surface. Taking players out, putting them on the ice and running drills is great. Repetition is great to a certain, but it hits a wall. Whereas if you use all of the ingredients that are available to you and you add the mental, the vision, the awareness, the comprehension of the game, there's no limit to it, because we don't know the limits to the mind. A lot of players are losing out simply because they're not prepared properly, not because the coaching staff is not good, not because the head coach is not a good coach, but because his support staff is not what he's missing an element in his support staff.
And I think it's interesting, in terms of what success, and certainly the model that NTDP has is they have them for a long period of time. They can build the cohesion, they can build the trust, they can build winner attitudes and as a team versus, Sweden has, these guys are playing in individual teams and then they come together on the camps and they come, it's the traditional model. The U.S. model is a little bit unique. And certainly, I don't know when the USA Hockey put that program or the process in place, but I would argue that they've surpassed Canada at this point. Now, maybe that's a little bit of a leap, but NTDP model has proven to be successful.
Listen, that U18, U17 program is outstanding. The Swedish program is outstanding also. Canadian program, yes, the U18, U17 program, it has bypassed the Canadian program simply because due to the application of that program. We do not have that program in Canada. In Sweden, for example, they have another thought process where they have more practices compared to games. So we know that is a positive. We also know that the Swedish players, when they arrive on North American soil, we know the skill development is beyond the North American ones. But the only part of the game is they have to adjust more to the smaller ice surface, et cetera. But there's no longer a question. Nobody can question their will to battle, because forget that. They're not fearful. No, anybody who thinks that you're going to intimidate a Swede physically and by a fight or something, forget that. That's not going to happen anymore. That's a myth. That's done. I wouldn't even try to wake them up that way, because some of them are extremely adept using their fists. So I'll let them sleep on that.
Yeah.
However, what I believe personally myself is that if you take the best of each program, you take what do they do, like, for example, in America, Canada, Sweden, Finland, whatever, and you put it into a pot, and then you break it down, and you take the best of every component that they have of every country. But it's hard to do because first of all, the dynamics of the arena, the ice surface is not the same. The skill factor, for example, in America, it's difficult to instill the thought process of practicing more than playing. I know the importance of it. You know the importance of it, but it's hard. It's a hard sell. It's the same way if I tell someone you need to have multi-sport experience in order to improve. A lot of people think, oh no, I have to spend all my time just playing hockey. It's not true, because your superstar players all played more than one sport. And it's been a proven fact for decades. So we know that, but it's hard. It's a hard sell because of the way that the game is sold today. So, but what I would do, for example, is very simple. If I'm teaching something, or if I'm coaching a hockey team, I want my team to be developed, because it becomes our team. And when it's our team, the responsibility of everyone is to be the best you can be at what you're doing, and to be able to execute, to be consistent, and be trustworthy. So each one can trust each other. So, for example, playing the game within the game. There are times that you have to interact with another player. Play breaks down, but you got to make sure that you're able to adjust to that breakdown. And it has to be done in a bang, bang. Today's game, the way they play, coaches tell a lot of players, for example, hey, when we get to the dressing room between periods, we're going to rectify that. I'm sorry, too late. I want it done now. If I'm the general manager, not my coach, no. You identify the problem, you adjust. I want it done on the bench immediately. But to the coach's demise, they're often not put in a situation where that's their job, where they can work at that every day. Like a minor hockey coach or development coach, he may be coaching another team.
Yeah.
And then he has to bring all these players together. So it's hard for him to do that. So I basically feel that you have to bring in, doesn't matter where it is, whether it's in Timbuktu, whether it's in Nigeria, or whether it's in the Arctic. You have to bring in people that are just as strong as yourself or stronger in the areas that you do not have the strength within, and in the areas of need. And you surround yourself like that, and then your team and your whole environment will change. And it's then you become good at what you do, because everybody remembers the winner, right? You don't remember the loser.
Well, I think it seemed like it's taken a little bit of a dip, the Junior Worlds, and I thought that it was a good tournament, and some of the best weren't there, but it was just an entertaining tournament, and hats off to the U.S. team to bring the gold home, and it's going to be interesting to see how everybody else makes moves and changes, and lots of stuff going on in Hockey Canada for sure now, and not necessarily always good things. They've gotten distracted with so many things, and hopefully they can get back to having to focus on the right things and not the wrong things as a foundation, as a federation.
Yeah, and that all starts at the youth level. That they're trying to correct things at after the happenings, where prevention has always been the best way of being. And prevention starts with education. And if you educate them younger properly, you have to weed out. The U.S. team, for example, like at the World Juniors, I know the coaches, outstanding coaches. I know them. Both of the killer and the head coach, Carla. These guys are good coaches. The Swedish coaches, I don't know them personally, but I know they're good coaches.
Yeah.
They're good coaches. So, but they're only there for a short period, and we need to, and also there are players either team didn't have with them. We have to somehow or other find a way to make it more uniform, the teaching, to separate the coaching from the teaching. You're either a teacher or you're a coach. And, so I've been blessed. I've always had guys like Dave Starman, Andre Ruel, college profs. I've always had them, Andre Lebrun. They've, they were teachers too, and they fulfilled roles that maybe I didn't. And sometimes they used to say, well, gee, what are they doing? Like I would do a lot of exercises away from the arena. Yeah, well, we're educating the players, because this is what they have to execute when they come to the ice. I can't just expect them to go to the ice surface. I go to the board, and then I draw out a drill, an exercise, and I tell them, hey, I want you to do this, 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 this. And then I overlook, for example, maybe one of the players, well, gee, he's got a weakness. He needs to improve. So maybe he doesn't know how to get to the right area at the right appropriate time. So I need to take him as an individual. Okay, on this exercise, your role is to do this.
Yeah.
On this, in this one here, on this one, and not just have it a repetitious and have it as a group thing, but I break it down to an individual, keep the same exercise, but they're all getting something that they need to improve upon, not just having all of them doing it. Because at the end, once they are habit, right? You repeat, do it. If I go across the street on the same way every day, I can do it practically with my eyes closed. But what happens when cars are coming? When trucks are coming? So basically, or what happens if I have a limp? Well, what happens maybe if my one arm is much shorter than the other, or bone is deep? How do I see? There's all kinds of things that are ingredients in the game that were overlooked that we try not to overlook and to implement it into the training. If you're playing for me today, if I were coaching, I would say, Jacob, if let's say you're a shooter, and if I have an exercise with you, and I said, well, Jacob, you're a shooter. What are you doing down there behind the net? We've got the puck. Why aren't you in a soft area where you can get your shot off? Or why aren't you in front of the net for a deflection, etc.? Why are you down there? Well, the drill said I had to. Well, then forget the drill. This is where do you go on the drill? What are you supposed to do where your weakness is? I know you can go down there, but so you're going to be chasing the puck all day? How are you going? You can't score from back there unless you're lucky. And luck doesn't exist. So
yeah. Well, let's wrap up by talking about, because I think all of this kind of comes together. One of the cool things that I read about you, that back up there in Windsor in Nova Scotia, they even named a rink after you up there now. But I think you're talk about the camp that you got coming up this summer, and what are the dates, and how can we get information about it?
The dates are July the 22nd in Windsor, Nova Scotia. That's West Stance Regional Municipality. However, it's a two-week session, but 1 week and 1 week, two different sessions. However, the camp is a learning center. It's not a hockey school. Or a hockey camp. It's not a vacation, although it's a vacation for parents, or vacations if you want to stay afterwards. What it is, it's very intense, and I can explain it to you because I talk about the lack of awareness certain players have. Great skaters, great puck handlers, great shooters, but they do not see the ice, etc., or hockey sense is lacking, and we can teach hockey sense. So what we do is, we start in the mornings in the classroom, where we go through the themes of the day, and they take their notes, etc., so they know exactly what's going to happen, etc. They see it, it's explained. We put the players through the dressing room, for example, explain to them the protocol, take them to the indoor turf, and we go through the themes of the day, exactly what exercises, etc., what is the learning curve of the day. And then they see it, they learn it. For example, if we're teaching a part of the drills that we want is maybe using your feet, being able to use your feet, receive passes, etc., or receiving passes with a stick. Well, I'll take a soccer coach. Soccer coach, teach them how to use their feet in the turf, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So we use pros for that. You go to the bench, for example. Players with us, you have to learn how to handle the bench, how to understand it, what you look for as a player. You have to have the mindset of a coach. For example, the players are out there for about a minute and a half, 2 minutes. Maybe your defensemen have their tongues hanging down to their toes. They're tired. We've got to get them off, provide an opportunity to have a line change. So the player jumping on the ice has to understand, hey, I can't be trying to make a fancy play here. I've got to make an appropriate decision to make sure I can provide an opportunity so my teammates can get off the ice. Line changes. You might want the guy to go to the puck and have the D-man step up and take the strong side. And have that first guy off the bench coming off it, going to the puck carrier. You might want the second guy maybe going to the middle, whatever. You're not conventionally. You can't put everybody in a box. You have to teach them all of the facets. Line changes. Do you change with 1, 2, 3? How do you do it? When do you do it? Everything is broken down into a curriculum. It's like going for your PhD, except you get to have your exams are on the ice. Your NHL combine, for example, where they work strength and conditioning, which is great. They do an excellent job. But if you come to the Paris way, your combine is going to be cerebral. We want to know, to what degree is your understanding of the game? What do you see? What are you able to see? Where's your strength in hockey sense? When to play, how to under pressure, et cetera, and so forth during a game. So, and then we evaluate. But that's just grosso modo. What I would like to see, I would like to see as many Swedes as possible. And we only take 8 defensemen, 12 forwards per group. That's like a team, because my thought process is, I'm not a factory. We are not a factory. We're there to educate you. You have to leave much better than what you came in. And we're there to help you to be able to progress within not only the individual understanding of the game, but all of the facets that you need to have to prevent you not being consistent, like strategic positioning. That's very important, because the theory of imagination is simply to encourage smart strategic positioning, et cetera, and so forth.
Yeah.
You play in the National Hockey League, you're a centerman. You're a centerman for a reason. I don't want a winger there that doesn't understand that the centerman's really able to execute like a true centerman. But there's a reason for it. So when it breaks down, we teach you what to do. But you have to learn to play the game within the game by understanding your strength, your role, being willing to accept a role, and play to your strength, like I said, and be able to interact with your teammates. So those are teachable components, to give you an example. And if I have a mixture of Swedish players and whatever in there with North American players, they will understand more, a little more the mind games too that are played with, because we do have skits. Also, we have skits. We put players through situations where they have maybe verbal aggression. Maybe they know the American team's going to run them. Well, there's ways and means, we call them escape methods, when you're on the ice surface, where you can play any team, how physical and big they are. I don't care. You're able to combat that easily if you can see. If you see and understand, that's fine. And that's where we go. But it's intense. The days are long. We have dormitory. We have a cafeteria. We have pickup at the airport. And like I said, it's not a factory. We will take 8 defensemen, 12 forwards per group. The age groups are like 11 to 13, 14 to 16, and 17 to 20.
Yep. And how do you find, so if I'm on Google here now, how do I find information about the camp?
We will have the website, should be up within a couple of weeks, which will be, if you go to, you'll go to the Paris way, but it'll be up in a couple of weeks.
Okay. I'll be sure. And by the time that we'll air this, we'll make sure we put it in the description.
In the description,
well. Yeah. Well, I just think it's fun. It's interesting because there's so many camps that are all the same. It's just a different person, different skills guy, and he's going to have, maybe it's a twist. They're going to run parachutes and they're going to run, fancy things. And so much of it's based off of the cool thing that, and who has the best video editing person in social media really is attracting people to it.
Maybe I could help explain a bit. We do not use a big name. I could go out and get a big name to come in. What I use is people that are professionals. For instance, defensemen. They're taught by a professional defenseman. Jared McCarthy is playing. He's one of them who's playing in Grand Rapids at the moment, Detroit's organization. I could go on. Centermen are taught by a centerman. You understand where I'm going, right? So triangulation is taught by a professor before you even go out, to make sure you understand this is what transpires in a game. You see it on, and then video is done by Montreal Canadiens ECHL video coach. He comes in to handle that. If you want to understand about, I don't know, advisors, agents, there's an advisor in the neural skills. Nathan Bittop, the original neural skills expert, who incidentally is working with the agent. He's actually giving the same neural skills for agents. He does it for agents, coaches, players, a lot of NFL. He'll be there to explain what he does, so that you're complete. And the agent he's dealing with of CAA is he's the one who had the top baseball players signed that $700 million contract, the largest in sports. So, football, baseball, basketball, they're all doing it with them. So it's a future too. And incidentally, it's not lights on a computer or on the wall where you just go with speed and adjustment. No, it's all about understanding, seeing. For instance, myself, I teach peripheral vision. It's important. I teach that away from the ice, then to the ice, or I'll teach you bench management. Somebody else will come in. Like I said, there's always a professional to teach their strengths. And when you leave, if you're a winger, you'll be a winger. If you're a center, but you'll be able to compete and also be a completion if it breaks down, to be able to adjust to a breakdown. So we all know about that first, second, third, forechecker, back checker positioning. But what a lot of youth do not understand is the importance of your sentiment. You've got to get there. You have responsibilities, and we won't expect it to be fulfilled. If it breaks down, somebody will be able to replace you there. But you have to make that switch as soon as you can. And we teach motion offense, motion defense. We use multi-sports also so that you understand exactly what's going on. Football, basketball, baseball, soccer, ball hockey. Ball hockey, we tell hockey players you have to keep your feet moving. But if you play ball hockey, you have to be running, you have to be moving your feet. So this is what we also incorporate that. But then you go to the ice, and that's where you get your rewards.
Your applied application phase.
You get your reward there. And there's also people that'll be there to value. You'll be rated and ranked. You'll be rated and ranked, and there'll be people there that I'm sure that are going to offer you opportunity. That the BCHL, the NAHL, the minor pro leagues, the ECHL, the SPHL, the prep schools. There's ample opportunity. U18 programs. So but my objective is, we're not a placement agency, is just to help the player to perform better at the game that they prefer, so that when they go back home or they join their teams, well, they might be able to make a team at a higher level that they've always aspired to. That's where my ego is. I want the player to leave and to progress. I don't want him to come in and say, hey, I went to a camp, I had fun. Yeah, where are you playing? Well, I didn't make the team I wanted to make, and I'm done. Well, why didn't you make it? Well, I couldn't quite keep up. Well, why? And if the player says, well, I wasn't fast enough. Well, maybe if you understood the game a little better and you had better vision, had more hockey sense, you can compensate, and you might make it. The skill factor, and I won't keep you long, the skill factor, skill development, there's enough professionals out there that teach skating, edge work, things like that. It's not what we do. We teach NHL game performance. NHL game performance. That's what we do.
Yeah, that's the point that I want to make sure that people get, is that, and I don't think that it's out there right now. I don't think that, well, I'm saying, I'm sure it's out there. It's just not a whole lot of it. It's
out there. Daryl Belfry and Adam Oates are teachers. Kucherov had Adam Oates help him, and you saw the change in Kucherov. He was already a superstar. Now he's a superstar. But he was taught by Adam Oates. Daryl Belfry is a teacher. He's one of the best. There's a difference. We're teachers, and that's what I take pride in. What we do, others are doing. We just do more.
Yeah. Well, it's awesome. Well, I appreciate you coming on. Let me end with this. We have a partnership with Target Aid in Sweden, which is a fundraising platform that we have a presence in. And I'm interested to hear what your opinion on this is. We have a segment that is, which is your team in your heart. Now, you have been involved in so many teams, but which one is the closest to your heart?
The closest would be a little small midget hockey team in St. Joseph de Sorel, never lost a hockey game. How would I say that? Nobody expected them to beginning to play the way they did, and they became a hockey team. Nobody wanted to play them because we would be a man short, and we would just play keep away or no. And a bunch of those youths were how would I say that, unknown. And as the season progressed, they became well known. I mean, anytime you can take a small arena and fill it with a bunch of kids and having people come to see them. And the second one would be IMG, a group of kids. There were 13 of them, with the goaltender included. They dominated in Florida. They dominated. These kids, I still smile today. Those were the two. So I have to say two.
That's
Although
good.
I appreciate all the others, but it
Yeah.
was the execution they did. But they did things different.
So the first one, just make sure that was Riverends du Richelieu.
No, it was Saint Joseph de Salette.
Okay, all right.
And it was said the Maple Leafs de Saint Joseph de Salette.
I see. Well, I appreciate that.
Riverends were good. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah, I'm reading off of a page here, so I was going to make sure I got the right one as well. So, John, it's been a pleasure. A little different conversation than we normally have, and not so much about Sweden, but certainly interested about this little black puck that we talk about pushing around and in so many different ways.
Yes, and I can tell you what a lot of people are unaware of. When I was in Macon, Georgia, and coaching in the Central Professional Hockey League, there was a gentleman by the name of P.A. Forsberg. His son now plays for the Ottawa Senators as a goaltender. So I used to bring P.A. used to come over and for a couple of weeks and work my power play in that for in Macon, because and that's how I got to know P.A. And I had a couple of Swedish players that came and played at different times on the team. But however, to show you my mindset is that no, I'm the type of person that I'm always looking to find people that have strengths that are better than mine and that can bring a let's just say a plus to the players on the team. It's not about John Parrish Jr. It's about the youth, the players that are on the team. So P.A. Forsberg was there. And when I was in Sweden at the Dome, they were working cycling back then with their national team. And I remember talking to some of them because they weren't used to seeing a black guy setting their little guy, and they were curious. And somebody told them I was a coach. That was back at the end of the 80s. And I had mentioned to him, I said, don't forget, if you're going to cycle, you have to end with a scoring chance, scoring opportunity. And I didn't have my skates because at that time, because one of them had offered, said, would you want? And I said, I don't have my skates. He said, well, we'll get you a pair. And I said, well, we have to go. But I said, I'll come back and work. Anybody that needs, if there any association of that needs any help, it's not about money or anything like that. It's about exchanging. It's about learning from each other. I'm available, so don't be shy with it. I'll have fun. I'll learn from you. You'll learn from me. It would be interesting. I think it's about time we got a gold medal in Sweden, don't you?
I certainly agree, and it's getting there. It's
I mean for the World Juniors.
It's getting there. They've been so good in the group rounds, and
they've been outstanding.
But then it's getting there. It's funny to have those conversations with the folks at the Swedish Hockey Federation, because they're trying to change the mindset of creating more of a winner attitude. Is actually strategic thinking at the federation level. So then it goes into kind of the methodology of how do we now create this, which is easier said than done.
Yeah. Well, the first thing that you have to do, whether in North America or Sweden, is basically when I say don't leave the egos at the door, because everyone has an ego. It's just that you leave your ego status, which is a negative side, at the door, bring in the positive, open-minded ego side, or be willing to change your ego status.
Well, the last time that they won the World Juniors was when Mika Zibanejad, who talking about a winner, a proven winner, scored in the game-winning goal, and that's been 15 years ago, maybe now. I don't know.
It's been a while. I remember it, and he's with the Rangers now. Was with Ottawa before, and he's a shooter too. But like I said, the normally I enjoy watching the Swedes play every World Juniors, and there's nothing more. It's good for hockey. It's just good for hockey that they come out and win, because they do dominate right up to the finals. And
Well, I was going to mention one Swede that I was going to get your opinion on. We talked a long time, but I do have to mention, and that's Mats Naslund.
yes,
Played for the Canadians in the
Canadians. Yes, Mats. Yes, and
he was a tiny little kid.
little fight, but he had played. He had a bout with cancer.
I didn't know that.
Well, he wasn't he ill. He was ill with something.
I
think
don't know.
It was cancer. I think it was cancer. I'm not sure. I could be mistaken, but I think it was. But I remember watching him play, Mats Naslund.
But he was,
he was,
another one was Håkan Loob, who played for Calgary, who was also very little, but very skilled. Both of those were unbelievable.
They were skilled players. But then you had Naslund that was in also Vancouver.
That's Marcus Naslund.
Marcus Naslund.
Yeah, that's the next generation.
Next generation. But we could go on. And the Swedish players are researched. People want Swedish players, Swedish and Finnish, because the reason is simple. It is the preparation. Because I'm just talking about end results. But if we look at their global program, they can be very proud of where they've come to, because
especially with as few players in relation to population. It's amazing.
Oh goodness. I mean, if you come, there's 300 million people in the United States, and it has the United States has the largest participation of hockey players in the world. By bar none. So when we look at that, but then again too, it all comes back to your program. The Swedes have an excellent program. It's like anything. There's always room for improvement. You have to be like a dog on a bone. You cannot be satisfied. So, but they're doing very well. I'm actually, like I said, very proud of that. My wife has a Swedish jersey. We have two of them here, and everybody asks me, "Well, how come you have Swedish jerseys?" I said, because the model, the skill factor, and I've actually told youth to go to Sweden. You need skills. Go to Sweden. I've actually done that.
It's good stuff. Well, John, thank you for sharing your time. Glad the power didn't go out, and we'll stay in touch for sure. And as you get the website up and running, we'll make sure that we'll help out with some reaching out. I know it's the first year doing it, and I'm sure it's going to be more of it, and it's probably going to grow quite a bit, and we'll be behind supporting it for sure.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.